So that's the one thing I'd say about Chelsea so far this summer is two of their three are from the Prem, and the other one, Gittins, is English. So it's not like he's not used to this. I actually think that's the right way to go. You look at what, Liverpool are doing. Yes, Wirtz is from Germany, but it's one of the top leagues. As Frimpong's an interesting one because he's from the German league, but he's from an English academy. You've got Kirkes who's coming in. You look at the other two players Liverpool looking to buy. It's Gahey and Isak. Again, Prem proven. So that element for Chelsea, I think, is really key, that they are buying players they are getting a fair amount of players now, and they're targeted to a lot of players. Kudus is another from the Premier League. So I do think they'll be a much better team next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will be closer to the top. How close though? I don't know. I don't think they'll struggle to get top 4 this year. I think they'll be pretty much cemented as one of the top 4 teams, and everyone else scrap it out for the 5th place if it's there. But again, it's the question of what does it take for Chelsea for them to be a title contender and therefore go on to win the league? I think that's the big question I think all of us have, is like, this building is great, but if they're going after Arsenal after 3 years of finishing second and building that way, and they say you must win the league, you're not too far off them in terms of your squad and your process. So when is it that we demand Chelsea to win the league like people have been demanding Arsenal to win the league? That's my question.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you on that, and I don't know about that. I'd like to pose that question to Jamie. Chelsea should be expected now, going 4 years into their rebuild. You're talking about, by the end of this summer, it's going to be well over £1 billion spent on first team players. This manager, if we look at just his cycle, he's spending what is going to go to 400 to 500 million. There has to be an expectation on that, surely.
Yeah, there would be an expectation on it, but I think the statements that you make as a team in terms of like your club and what players you're going to go for, and what we were talking about there before with Abramovich, and he would go out and sign the best players because he was like, we need to go out and win things. I don't think these signings scream that we need to go out and win things. It's kind of nice to have. Like, I think the goal next year for Chelsea, like internally, probably get Champions League and then potentially win a cup or something. You know what I mean? And they would be happy with that as a management, because like they'll get the Champions League revenue. I think the Club World Cup is big for them and big for a lot of the clubs because of the revenue that generates. But yeah, I'd be frustrated as a Chelsea fan because I feel like they do have good players in the team. I think Palmer, I know his form dipped a little bit, but he is a good player. I think Caicedo is only getting better the more he's at Chelsea. I think Enzo has had a lot of big improvements. They do have like the kind of nucleus of a good team. But I just feel like the signings that they're not making now are not taken to the next level. So even though they're in the next stage of like what do we call Arteta's rebuild, like stage 7, whatever it is, like they'd be stage 4 in terms of like the ownership model, but like they're not kind of any closer to Man City, Liverpool, or Arsenal in that sense. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think these signings are going to take them there. So I think the expectations of the fans will be that they want to get back to that level, and that's the way it should be. Because if the Chelsea that I grew up knowing was that, it was the ones that were like, they were so hard to play against. The quality of the players that they had were always there. But I feel like because this is a new ownership, it's a new kind of expectations. We have those old expectations that we used to have on Chelsea, but I don't know. I'm yet to see the ownership kind of match that model.
Is though, Jamie, don't you think that Chelsea get like what they're doing right now is they're just getting away with lowering their expectation due to the quality of players that they're signing? Like, if we look at the money, like just take away the players, look at the actual money they're investing. They're investing like a club that's trying to win the league. Now, the players they're signing are not at that level. So then I'm looking at it and it's like, okay, so they're avoiding the expectation of trying to win the league or having the expectation of you need to title challenge, but they're spending like that, which the fans are just being like, oh yeah, we could spend what we want. We've been doing this for years. And us as rival fans are just accepting like, oh yeah, Chelsea have been doing this for a while now. This is just what they do. But no, like we have to get to a point of like, no, you're spending this amount of money every year. You're signing this amount of players. You should be challenging. You should be going up there and winning things. Now, obviously, like we've highlighted, like some of the players are signing aren't at that level, but they could become that level. But for me, it's just like avoiding the expectation right now. That's what it seems like the ownership is doing.
I'll just give you a fact on numbers. So after the Gittins and the João Pedro deal, so in 1 and a bit summers, Maresca's Chelsea have had 526 million euros invested in it. To put that into context, since Arteta has been manager, they have spent 790 million euros. So in 1.5 summers, Chelsea are only 170 million euros shy of matching Arteta's total spend. And I think this is where the question, and by the way, Arsenal have not spent anything yet. This is all taken from Transfer Market. So I'm only going by the numbers. They're going to have Kepa's numbers and that you've got Zubimendi's numbers that haven't been added yet because they haven't officially announced it. So you are going to add, if we had Zubimendi there at like the euros here, about 60 million euros, Kepa's going to come in at say 8 million euros. They're the deals. They say this kid they're going to get for 20 million euros is done. They're the ones that are like that.
For 11.
And who?
Norgard.
Norgard, for 11. Let's add those in as well. Okay, it's a little bit higher now. So you're talking nearer to, I must have done a wrong number. You're talking, so it was 290 million. My maths was off. About 290 million difference, but in 1.5 years. You're now talking about 300, just under 360 million euros less. But you're talking about a 5.5 year span versus 18 months. There is a rightful expectation on Arsenal to now judge their seasons based on partly on the trophies they win. You've always got to contextualize things, but there has to come a point soon where Chelsea are judged on the trophies they do or don't win. When you invest that, Chelsea can't be the only member of the traditional top 6 who is not judged based on the money they're spending. The rest of us are consistently judged. In fact, people try and take away from Pep's achievements by saying how much money he spent. So I will say that I don't think Chelsea are having a bad summer so far. I think they've signed some really good talent, but this manager alone has had 526 million spent in one and a bit summers. There's got to be for me. I don't really care who they buy. I'm basing it on what they're spending. They have got to be in the title race next year, Chelsea, as a bare minimum expectation for their season. They have to be in that title race. I don't think you can drop what they're about to drop again and then go finishing in the top 4 is okay without closing that gap trying to close that gap on Liverpool. And I know Liverpool have spent big, but they've got to try and close that. For me, anyway. For me.
Do you not like? Obviously, I agree with like the amount of money that they spent, but obviously their whole model now is buy loads of players, see which ones fit. If they don't fit, like sell them. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes the resale value might be higher or lower, whatever it is. And like their outgoings in the time that Ted Bowley has been there, the new group, is because they sell a lot of their players too. Do you know what I mean? So like their outgoings are pretty high in comparison to other people in the team. I think my thing is like what George said, they go out and spend all this money, but like they're not really it's not like pushing them up to the echelons of say like winning a Premier League or winning a Champions League. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where my expectation of Chelsea, I understand the expectation because of the money they're investing in the team constantly to bring in new players. It's a very different model to everyone else in terms of like the way they do it. My expectation of Chelsea is that they don't have a squad to compete for a Premier League or a Champions League. And even like I know Champions League is a little bit different because you can not be the best team in the league and you can win it. Like we've seen it, Chelsea have done it themselves before. Do you know what I mean? Liverpool have done it in 2005. You can not be the best team, but I just think like consistently competing at the top is not what this ownership model like. They're not. It's not about that. It's about like a business. It's like revenue generated.
I get that, and I think that's like that's why I like these conversations. That's where I think there's for me. Someone here just says, Terry, we always get judged by what we spend. Now people mock you for how much you spend, but then that's different because I don't mock you for how much you spend. I never say, oh my God, I can't believe they're spending this amount of money. It's wrong. That's a different conversation. I also get where you're coming from, Jamie, when you say, well, I'm looking at what they're buying and therefore I don't expect them to win the league. I also agree. I also get that point. But for me, I'm sort of somewhere in the middle where I go, where do I think they will end up based on what they've bought versus after spending that amount of money, this is really where you should be. Because from my perspective, I look at, and I don't think they bought crap with that money. Caicedo is a great example. Cucurella is another. Palmer. At the same time, I look at what Liverpool are doing this summer, and Chelsea will have spent more money in 2 summers than Liverpool this summer. And you've gone and got Wirtz, potentially Isak, Frimpong, Kirkes. And I know you've already got... So I look at it and just go, with the way Chelsea are moving, you can stick to this model. But you could go out this summer and go, there's Isak, or there's Gyökeres. And you add in a gem to this team that I think wins you an extra 10 to 12 points. And you're still spending the same money. But the difference is, instead of qualifying for the top 4, you could legitimately win the league. For me, it's not about changing the model. It's a very slight adaptation. So I do get your point. I don't expect them to win the league on a prediction level.
Yeah.
But I expect a team that has invested this amount of money to be in title races. I can't ever get my mind away from that. And I don't mean year 1 or year 2, but they're going into, and again, people will do the Arsenal comparison. They started their rebuild when Arteta came through that door, not because he's the manager. They changed everything about the way they operated Arsenal, the way they bought players. They stripped it all back and started again. They got a lot of criticism for it. When they were going into the beginning of their 4th year, they were challenging for the league. So I expect Chelsea to, and I've said this on record, I expect Man United. By the time we're going into the 4th year of Ineos, because that's when the rebuild started, not with the manager. For me, Man United's rebuild didn't start when we appointed Amorim. It started the summer that Ineos took full control over our operations. I look at Liverpool. You might do a squad rebuild here and there. Your rebuild didn't start with Klopp. Your rebuild started when FSG took over your club and started changing how you operated. So when people go, what phase is slotting? Well, probably about phase 32 by now, because you've gone through these processes. I don't think club rebuilds are about a new manager per se, unless you can prove and show the world changed. The model and everything changed at this point. They got rid of all the recruiters. They changed the style of football, the types of players that we're going to buy. If you can show that, then you can make that argument. But as a general rule, it's there. So yeah, for me, I get where it's coming from. It's going to be an interesting season for Chelsea, and they're not done yet. They're still going to sign more players. I think Mohamed Kudus would be an excellent deal. But viewers, do us a big favor, please, and hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Please get this stream